Welcome to Tell the Tale, our genre focus on fantasy in the library. The question we need to answer is how will these stations focused on fantasy genre help my students prepare for state testing and other assessments? That's a good question. These stations are designed to be multidisciplinary middle school stations that incorporate activities such as creative writing and argument writing, creative artwork, world building, designing characters, performing calculations with math, among other things. And they can be highly effective in preparing students for state testing and other assessments. Here's how. One, there's a great deal of critical thinking involved in these stations with creative and argument writing, designing characters and maps. There's a lot of cross disciplinary connections, so kids will see the connections from one subject to another. It allows them to build engagement, hang on 1 second, and retention, engaging activities like artwork and creative things make learning more interactive and memorable, and that can lead to better retention. Developing technical skills such as math calculations, which helps them figure out how to solve problems and how to figure out strategies to deal with problems, and it also helps them to develop healthy frustration and dealing with frustration in a healthy way. Improving time management and organization. There's a limited amount of time to get these done in order for kids to earn the rewards. So they do need to, it forces kids to be more organized in the way they complete tasks. Boosting writing proficiency. There's a lot of writing activities within this project that students can engage in, both creative and argument. There's collaboration and peer learning. There's lots of opportunities throughout the project for them to collaborate with peers in order to work together to create. And that can enhance their understanding through discussion and shared ideas. So, in summary, multidisciplinary stations engage students holistically. They integrate test-aligned skills across various subjects while making learning dynamic and enjoyable. So this approach not only prepares students for the content of state tests, but also equips them with critical thinking, creativity, and time management skills that is essential for academic success. So stay tuned and let's take a look and see what's involved in all of these stations that the kids are going to be engaging in. These are the Tell the Tale stations we have set up in the library, including Create a Character, World Building Map, Fantasy Story Starter, Mythical Creature Research, Fantasy Poetry Slam, Fantasy Art Gallery, Argue with a Creature, Author Spotlight, and Slay the Dragon. And you can see that they're broken out by AVID and STEM characteristics, as well as subject areas. We're covering art, engineering, science, social studies, math, RELA. So we really have a lot going on with all the stations. So how do I use this with my classes? Well, you are certainly welcome to reserve a day on the library calendar or more. Bring your classes to the library to work on their stations. Send students who have completed classwork with you with passes, or you can give students time in class to work on their station assignments, which they should have in their binder. If it works for you, you could offer grades or extra credit for completed work. Each station does have a rubric for you. I can give you that. If you want to, in January, you can reserve me to come to your classroom and I can introduce the project. Or you can sign up to bring your advisory class for Tell the Tale stations. One class per advisory time. And you'll need to check the library calendar to make sure that there is availability for that. The station's objective in Tell the Tale are students will engage in creative art, reading, math, research, and writing activities to practice world building, character development, and other essential skills for enjoying compelling fantasy stories. Some stations would allow them to work with a partner, and they'll see this icon here. Some stations require a Chromebook, and they can ask me if they need to borrow one. And that's it. After you have completed your second activity and received your second stamp on your genre card, you will be able to spin the wheel to win. And depending upon what you spin, you will either get a crock charm, a bottle sticker, a piece of candy, or a dragon temporary tattoo. And remember, there is one spin per student. After your fourth stamp, you'll get an invitation to attend a movie in the Learning Commons after school. And we'll be watching How to Train Your Dragon. This is the stamp card that kids are going to need to keep up with. And yes, they need to keep up with it, because if they don't, they're going to have to start over. As they complete each station, they're going to come show me their work, and then I will give them their stamp. And according to the instructions, they have to check their work according to the rubric at each station. So they make at least a 3 or 4. That way I'm only stamping cards from kids that actually put in some effort on this. As you can see, they collect 6 stamps to get a poster. One of the posters hanging in the library. They collect 4 stamps. They get a ticket to the movie, How to Train Your Dragon. And the first 5 cards turned in will get a bag of Takis. I will have extra copies in the library of this card if kids need it, but I'll also give some to RELA teachers. Let's explore our fantasy station, starting with Character Creation Workshop. In this activity, students are going to create their own fantasy character, either protagonist or antagonist, and they have to complete an online chart and then create a drawing of their character on paper. All supplies will be provided at the station, and there is a link to the character chart here. So for this one, students have to turn in their drawing in the folder at the table and share their character chart with me in Drive. Here are some questions to consider, and every activity includes questions to consider. And here are some TEKS. These are English language arts, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And this is the rubric for this activity. And this is the rubric. World building maps. In this activity, students are going to design a map of their own fantasy world, including key locations like castles, magical forests, hidden caves. And they can use the samples here at this station to inspire them. And we'll display their map in the Learning Commons. These are their questions to consider. These are their questions to consider. And these are the science elements that we're going to add to the project. These are their TEKS, social studies and visual arts. Science TEKS. Language arts, critical thinking, and problem solving, 21st century skills. And this is the rubric. Next, we have fantasy story starters. Students will use the task cards at this station to develop a story using fantasy elements, characters, and setting. They'll write their story in Google Docs and then share their story with me in Google Drive. Here are the questions to consider. And the TEKS. We have reading and understanding, writing, creative expression and imagination, collaboration, and sharing. And here is the rubric for the fantasy story starter. Another activity we have is Mythical Creature Research Project using our TMS databases. Students will choose a mythical creature from the cards at the table, which are also linked here. They'll complete the foldable activity at the table with the etymology or word origin for their mythical creature. If their creature has a title, a governance, something they're in charge of, or a special power, symbols that connect to them, or a sacred animal, celestial bodies, or days of the week. So they're going to be researching information about a mythical creature here. They'll turn in their folder in the folder at the station, and that's it. Here we have questions to consider. And our teaks. And the rubric. For our poetry-loving students, we have a fantasy poetry slam. With this one, they're going to browse the poetry books at the station to let them get some inspiration. Then they're going to write a poem inspired by fantasy themes such as dragons, magic, or adventures. Once they have written their poem, they're going to record a video performing their poem in a digital poetry slam. And they'll share this video with me in Google Drive. And here are questions to consider. Teaks. And the rubric. For the young artists, this is the Fantasy Art Gallery, in which students will create artwork, painting, illustration, etc., inspired by fantasy themes, and they can use whatever materials are in the Makermobile. We'll display their artwork in the Learning Commons for a gallery walk for classmates and teachers. They'll turn in their artwork to the folder at this station. And here's some questions to consider. Antiques. And the rubric. With this station, students are going to get to stretch their argumentation skills with Argue with a Creature. So which creature would be best able to solve this challenging quest? A prince or princess is chained in a dark, dank dungeon by a dark dragon, a bad enemy. He or she has a powerful ring, but doesn't know how to use its magic. If he or she isn't rescued before the next full moon in 3 days, he or she will be turned into a blue moblin, a really bad enemy, and the land will be cast into eternal winter. So the students are going to write a convincing argument paper with reasons and support based on one of these characters: a wizard, a dwarf, an elf, a human, an animal, a dragon, or an ogre. Which character would be best able to help solve the quest? Here are the questions to consider. The teaks. And the rubric. In this activity, students are going to explore their crazy good math skills in Slay the Dragon. Dark Smoke, a hideous dragon, is bearing down on us with his blazing fire. In order to escape this horrible fate, students are going to need to solve 10 math equations on a Google form. And the Google form is set up so that they have to answer each question correctly before they get the next question. And with this activity, they will need a Chromebook and they are allowed to work with a partner. Here are the questions to consider and the TEKS. And these are broken down by math equation. Finally, we end our exploration of the fantasy genre with a fantasy author spotlight using our TMS databases. Students will choose one author, J.R.R. Tolkien, Rick Riordan, J.K. Rowling, Lemony Snicket, Kwame Mbemba, Claribel Ortega, or their choice, but it has to be a fantasy author. They're going to complete the author spotlight page, which is linked here. And when they click the link, it will open up a copy. They'll share their spotlight with me in Google Drive. Here's the questions to consider. And here's their TEKS. And the rubric. This is the checklist that students need to check before they turn in their work. Number one, did they review the rubric before they turned in their work? Students need to learn how to compare their work to a rubric. Is your name, their name, and real teacher's name on the item? Have they shared it with me online if necessary, or turned in the item in the folder at the station? And have they gotten their stamp on their fantasy genre card from Ms. Mustaine? And that is Tell the Tale, where they'll be exploring many different aspects to fantasy genres, covering a ton of TEKS along the way, and also maybe getting some cool rewards. Thanks and have a great day.